Okay, thanks for joining us. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
President Daly?
Here.
Vice President McNall?
Here.
Trustee Clements? Here. Trustee Headland?
Here.
And Trustee Valentine?
Here. Okay, thank you for being here. Our next Board of Education will be held, the meeting will be held on Tuesday, February 1st at 7 p.m. in the auditorium. The board met previous to this meeting for our retreat. And by retreat, it's not like a spa retreat. It's, although that would be nice. It's an opportunity for the board to workshop certain items, and we had the opportunity today to talk specifically about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how the district, or how the board feels that that is important work, and we are considering how to move forward with that work. So that is what we were discussing at our retreat. The second item here is our public comment structure. So I've prepared some comments that I'm going to read. I apologize if they're lengthy. I was just trying to be thorough. So there were some public comments made during our January 4th meeting. And those comments questioned our public comment policy. So the board is appreciative of the opportunity to address the question. First, it's important for the public to understand that the primary purpose of board meetings is for the Board of Education to conduct school business. They happen in public so that there's full transparency, but these meetings are not meant to support a public discussion and dialogue. They're for the board to conduct the important business of the district. Secondly, it's important to recognize that there are rules set by both the Open Meetings Law and the New York State education laws that determine how school board meetings are conducted, and we're obligated to follow them. Beyond that, however, boards do have some discretion at how they structure their meetings. And here at Haldane, we've decided to include 2 public comment sections. They're not required by law, but are aspects that the board feels is valuable. We also offer a board reflections and superintendent final thoughts section at the end of the agenda for further sharing with the public and amongst the board members, and that is also not required by law, but a choice that Haldane makes. The public comment sections that we offer are not a question and answer period, but rather a chance for the public to share a statement or question for the board, superintendent, and greater public to hear. Each member of the public that chooses to speak is thanked for their comments, and the superintendent and or board president responds to that comment either at the end of the meeting during our board reflections or final thought section, or in a phone call or email, usually within 24 hours. Occasionally, if the comment is quick, clear question aimed at a special presentation or an agenda item, the superintendent or board president may choose to answer it in the moment. It's important to note that Nisba, the New York State School Boards Association, and WIPSBA, the Westchester Putnam School Boards Association, and Nisba, the National School Board Association, all recommend that public comment sections are just that, for comments, not dialogue. And in fact, our current public comment policies have been held as a standard and as an example for other local school boards who are working on their public comment sections to follow. So there's several reasons that the board chooses to structure the public comment section in this way. Some public comments require the leadership to do research in order to provide complete answers. Some comments do not require factual information, and engaging in dialogue may result in an extended, unproductive exchange. Other comments are emotional and inflammatory, and engaging in a back and forth would not provide a professional, constructive dialogue. Further, other comments require much time and explanation to address that would interfere with a smooth meeting. Another factor is that the board president is the spokesperson for the board, but only on matters that have been discussed and previously decided by the board. So if a public comment brings up a topic that the board hasn't discussed, the board president cannot speak on the board's behalf, and the response would necessitate a board discussion instead of a response, which would not be an effective use of meeting time. So making the decision to not engage in dialogue, but rather to just hear the comments, is not an effort by the board to stifle public communication. It's a protocol that allows for board meetings to move along smoothly and effectively. It's understandable that that may be uncomfortable for a member of the public who's expecting a response, which is why the board president reads the public comment guidelines at meetings, and they are posted on every meeting agenda. There are many avenues for a member of the public to have constructive, effective dialogue with the board or superintendent about school matters. The board and the superintendent are fully available to respond to emails, phone calls, and have in-person meetings with community members who wish to do so. And in fact, we pride ourselves on being very available to the public. The board is proud of the way that we conduct ourselves. We have effective and professional board meetings that significantly contribute to Haldane's ability to grow and thrive. There have been many recent examples of how board meetings can become chaotic and destructive when proper protocols and discipline are not adhered to. We're hopeful that the community will continue to value the way the board conducts itself, and if there's any questions or comments, we welcome you to reach out to us so that we can have an open and honest conversation about it in an appropriate environment. So that was lengthy, but I wanted to make sure I got to everything. Does the board have anything they'd like to add or anything that you want to say? Did I cover everything?
Okay. Actually, I would say something.
Yeah.
So, Jen's comments mentioned that it can be, it's not how we typically conduct ourselves, right, to be quiet, and that it can be, it's likely feels uncomfortable to receive silence. It can feel uncomfortable not to say something as well. And I think I'm speaking for all members of the board. The silence, the policy is an attempt to accomplish all the things that Jen spoke to. The fact that we are sitting here means that we care, right? Like the fact that I run, I'm here, I give my evening to this, I give time to this, it means we care. It's why we do it. It's because we really care about the community. And it's unfortunate that that silence is being interpreted differently, because there's lots of things that folks can do with their time. And we're here because we deeply care. And I don't think any of us have done anything that suggests the opposite in any of our conduct. So that's the thing I would say.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to say as well, sitting here as an individual, as a parent, as a community member, and as a taxpayer, I have opinions on everything that's brought up, some things more than others. But it's just, it would be hard for me to stand up and voice my opinion knowing that it might not be what Jen, John, or Peggy, or Sean say as well. So that was sort of what I've been reflecting on since the last board meeting. So yeah, I'd like to stand up and yell and scream and give my opinions, but this is not the appropriate venue for that in that context. So.
Okay. So HFA negotiations under update for the community, but I think I'll let you have that.
Sure,
update.
I'll just mention that we had our second session with the mediator last week. It was a very constructive session, and appreciate the HFA's engagement, and look forward to having more to share in the coming weeks.
Okay, very good. Would you like to continue?
Well, as you know, our workshop meetings have quite a busy agenda, so I'll actually forego my comments for now, and I just ask Mrs. Sniffen to come to the podium. We have a special guest this evening, and Mrs. Sniffen's going to start with an introduction, and we'll go from there. So go ahead, Mrs. Sniffen, welcome.
Yes. So I have the distinct pleasure of introducing Miss Kylie Falloon to each and every one of you. I've known Kylie since kindergarten. And what I can say of Kylie is I am sure right now she does not want the spotlight on her. That would be typical. She is incredibly compassionate, caring. She's steady. She is one of those go-to students in the high school who does her thing and does it well. Kylie, in addition to being the Student of the Month at Boces and her programming of vet science, she also maintains over 95 GPA here at Haldane and always has through her entire high school career. So I'm incredibly proud of her, as I know her mom, Melissa, and her father are as well. So with that, I do believe...
Yeah, so Kylie, just bear with us. We have a video. So typically our Boces, our friends from Boces will come and be a part of this presentation. However, they were not able to do so tonight, but they did produce a wonderful video that I would like to share with the board and with our audience members and with Kylie and her family. So we'll cue this up.
Good evening. It is with great pleasure that I join you to announce this month's recipient of the Putnam Northern Westchester Boces Student of Distinction Award. This significant achievement is for students recognized by our staff for outstanding performance and personal growth. I also want to take a moment to thank you for your continued support. We value our relationship with your school district and look forward to continuing to serve your needs. And now for the Student of Distinction Award.
Good evening. I'm here to congratulate our Student of Distinction from the Haldane Central School District, Kylie Falloon. Kylie is part of our vet science program, and she's been in our program for 2 years. Kylie is an exceptional student. Not only does she help in the classroom, but her class also attends the Muscoot Farm each Friday to help on the farm. Kylie is a key member of that team that helps the Muscoot Farm family. So on behalf of everybody here at the Tech Center, we would like to congratulate our Student of Distinction from our Vet Science program, Kylie Falloon.
So just switching locations briefly, Kylie, we just wanted to congratulate you on your recognition. There you are, sorry, my mom. We're so proud of you and your how you've represented Haldane, not only at Boces, but to hear about the great things that you're accomplishing there. And in addition to obviously showcasing some of your work on our website, because this video will be posted there, and highlighting you in next month's issue of Haldane Horizons, we have this certificate here for you as an expression of our gratitude for you and congratulations to you and your work at Boces. So if you can come on up, we'll give Kylie a round of applause. Yes, our student recognitions are the best part of our board meetings. So
Sure are.
Kylie's done great work there. As I mentioned, Jen, we have a full agenda on workshop meeting night, so we'll transition right now into our detail reports, if that's okay, and I'll ask this evening's special topic is our middle school detail report. So Dr. Silke will come forward and share a little bit about the goals for the Haldane Middle School, and there'll be an opportunity for our board members to ask questions of Dr. Silke as she's going through her report this evening. With that, Marianne, welcome and thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Benante. Good evening. It's my pleasure to provide the board with a detailed report about the middle school tonight. I had to put my glasses on. Without my glasses, I cannot do that. Just a quick program overview. Most of you know that Haldane Middle School is comprised of the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, team teaching, standards-based, interdisciplinary focus, small class sizes, authentic experience, and student-centered work, meaning that students have choice and voice in the work that they do. So this is an introduction and overview of the pedagogical philosophy of Haldane instruction. The small class sizes at Haldane lend themselves to authentic, student-centered learning experiences. So we're very proud of that. The report tonight is organized according to the middle school's goals for this year. So our first goal was continuity of instruction. And it's coming into the second year of the pandemic, I'm really very proud to say that Haldane Middle School has been able and fortunate to have the opportunity to continue to provide full week, full in-person, without disruption, education to our students because of the cooperation in our school and with our community for all of the mitigation efforts to fight COVID. So very happy about that. And also to point out that one of the things that we've really leveraged is an increased focus on outdoor learning opportunities, both on campus and off campus. So, you know, this started last year. We always used our outdoor spaces at Haldane, but last year tents were brought in, so we had covered and we purchased furniture, so we have covered and furnished areas, and I'm happy to say that that has continued through this year, so we're very excited about that, and I think it's something that will be a benefit to the Haldane community that survives past the pandemic. For our second goal, the strategic coherence and alignment to the Haldane essentials. So some of you were part of the strategic coherence planning process and some of you were not, but it was a rigorous process where many stakeholders in the community came together, and it was decided that critical thinking, problem solving, communication, growth mindset, emotional intelligence, and wellness were the traits that we want our students to learn and perfect and leave with when they are done with their Haldane experience, their profile of a graduate, so to speak. So last year, which was the first year after these essentials were established, our teachers, despite the pandemic, came together during faculty meetings and team meetings and had informal kind of introductory conversations about, well, what does it mean? What does critical thinking mean at the middle school? What does problem solving mean at the middle school? And so on and so forth. What does it look like in the middle school curriculum? And how do we know that our students are developing skills in these areas, in emotional intelligence and in wellness? This year, those conversations have been solidified through the APPR process. Many of our teachers have set goals surrounding embedding one or more of the Haldane essentials into their curriculum. And the exciting part is that they're working on doing so in a organized and uniform way. So what you're seeing here and what you have access to is Ms. Boonshoff's curriculum overview document. Ms. Boonshoff is our secondary arts teacher, so her 8th grade curriculum overview document you have access, the board has access to, as an exemplar of this work that all the teachers K-12 are engaging in right now. And the most exciting part that I'd like to draw your attention to is that there is a piece of the work that asks for the Haldane essentials that are being included in the unit. So what that affords our faculty the opportunity to do is really understand where and purposefully and planfully establish where the essential they're working on fits into this unit. So, you know, I would argue that critical thinking has existed at Haldane for many years and in many different areas, K-12, but doing the uniform curriculum overview allows for a meaningful exploration of how that essential plays into the work, or whichever essential the educator has chosen to embed. So we're really excited about that work. As you remember probably from the September meeting and the great presentation that Christine Jamin and Tara Rounds gave to the board upon the board's approval, adoption of the MTSS plan, we adopted a new MTSS plan this year, and we're in the very beginning introductory awareness raising implementation stages of the MTSS plan. Dr. Benante and I have had many conversations about how just because a plan is adopted or a curriculum is adopted or a resource is adopted, it doesn't mean that magically it's going to be uniformly implemented in any given building. There has to be groundwork that's done so that everyone understands what's included in the plan and also how to implement that. So we're in the beginning stages of that work. It's very exciting work. At a faculty meeting, the I showed the presentation that Christine and Tara had done for the board to the faculty, and shared the document with the faculty, and we have started to use the new student support team language and the supporting details with that, and we have had our first universal data team meetings. So we're in the very beginning stages of this, and I hope that at this time next year, when I'm doing the middle school detail report next year, I'm able to give the board a nice detailed kind of follow through of what it looked like for this year and how it's growing for next year. So it's really exciting because this is, you know, our student support goal from this strategic coherence plan. And I just really love the idea of Haldane continuing their continuous efforts in reaching every student and reaching all students' needs. So our third goal is are comprised of our instructional goals. The structures that have been set up over the past 5 years are that there's a K-12 instructional council that's made up of all of our teacher leaders. And then at the building level, we have a middle school instructional council that's made up of the team leaders, the coordinators for humanities, math and science, and representation from our special education department. So together we spend time on a monthly basis honing in what our goals are for that particular year instructionally on the building level. So this year we're focusing on, as always, project-based learning. So project-based learning is, as you know, a dynamic classroom approach in which students actively explore real-world problems and challenges and acquire a deeper knowledge. This mechanism for learning is so developmentally appropriate at the middle school age. During the middle school age, the tasks of the young mind are to learn how things work and to understand and to organize. So what better way to do that than through project-based learning? So President Daly shared a funny story about True Blue with us before the board meeting started, and Haldane Middle School is True Blue. This is our school motto. It was collaboratively developed 3 years ago with faculty, parents, and students, and it encompasses our shared understanding of how we want to show up when we come to school, adults and kids alike, and who we are as Haldane Middle School. So how this plays out is that the students are explicitly instructed of what it means to exemplify teamwork, responsibility, understanding, and excellence at the beginning of the year, and then there's refreshers throughout the year. So there's a common language and a common expectation set out from the start, and then those positive behaviors are reinforced or supported if they need to be supported, because the idea is that we're all working together to reach this goal of being True Blue, right? Adults and students. And I'm very happy that the students are oftentimes highlighted in the district newsletter that have been recognized for their teamwork, responsibility, understanding, and excellence. Lastly, in this goal, the building level instructional goals, the board has been very supportive of the middle level in the adoption of a resource for the next generation science standards, our full option science system, otherwise known as FOSS. We're in the second year of our FOSS implementation, and last year the board also was very helpful and considerate through the process of us looking at math resources and adopting our Big Ideas math resource that is in its first year at Haldane. And just like an MTSS plan or any other plan that's adopted can't automatically or magically, like you wave a magic wand and now that resource is being utilized to its full extent. Anytime there's implementation, there has to be evaluation of that implementation. So one of the goals of the building level team is to get together the math teachers 6th, 7th, and 8th, and get together the science teachers 6th, 7th, and 8th, and have them have meaningful time to review how the implementation of the resources is going, what are the next steps. I'll give you an example. For the full option science system, in the first year of the rollout, we were, that spring we were shut down. And then the second year, last year we were distanced, widely distanced, and there was, at least in the beginning of the year, there were strong protocols around sharing materials. So, well, the full option science system, one of the reasons why it was adopted, or why it was selected for a recommendation for adoption, is because it's hands-on. So one of the things that the science teachers want to come together and talk about is how they capture some of the work that they did to implement the resource when we were in shutdown and when we were distanced, and also talk to other schools about what they did. For the math department, they want to look at the electronic piece of Big Ideas Math, which was a big reason why it was recommended for adoption. There's some gamified components to that you can't just open and use. You have to learn them yourself so that you can teach them to the students to use. And then there's also online components of Big Ideas Math that allow for stretch problems to challenge students who are above grade level, and skill gap closers to help students that are below grade level make achievements and close those gaps in those math skills. So this year, our math and science educators are collaborating to evaluate the rollout or implementation of those resources that the board was so good to adopt. Thank you so much. I could talk about the middle level forever, as you know. So I'm going to stop now and see if there's any questions for me.
Mary, can you just speak a little bit more to one thing for me? You mentioned Ms. Boonshoff's unit overview document, and you shared about the work that had been going on with all the staff this year. Can you just speak a little bit more to that and what the expected outcomes of that are?
Long-term or short-term or both?
This year.
Yeah, this year. So our hope as a district is that every teacher, K-12, will complete a curriculum overview document, which is basically like a scope and sequence for one of their courses. So this will give us the jumping off point for future years of development, and ideally, like our big, when we think big and we really dream about how we could utilize these materials, is a searchable document. So if Mr. Wick is covering, marine mammal strandings in his ecology class, he can search to see, well, where else is this taught in, okay, it's taught in fourth grade science, so maybe we can collaborate with the fourth grade, or it's also taught in this 12th grade elective on, science and politics, and, maybe we could have those kids come down and talk to the ecology kids. So it can be a tool eventually for collaboration and interdisciplinary work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a quick question. I'm sure that a lot of parents out there are surfing the waves of media about impacts of COVID on education. And a lot of those articles seem to be written at a national level or in different, we're in a very different spot here because we've been fortunate enough to be in person, basically. There was some analysis done at the end of the first couple months when we were remote, and there were some findings from that. But what would you say to a parent who continues to be facing these kind of news media stories, and what are you seeing in the middle school given results to date, results this year, implementation, and any changes that you may be making?
Excellent question, thank you. I think that, it would be foolhardy to say, oh, well, pandemic hasn't had any impact at Haldane, because that's an oversimplification. I think it is true that our students fared better than most of the students in New York State because we were able to be open 5 days a week, without interruption all of last year, and interruptions continue in neighboring districts this year, and we, again, luckily have not had to have that kind of interruption to instruction. However, I think that we'll see the strain of the pandemic in some very specific skills in mathematics. And that's one of the reasons why I'm very glad that the board moved forward with adopting the resource, the Big Ideas Math resource, because for our academic intervention services, if we could have a uniform resource to address those gaps, we can really do a full court press to get students that are exhibiting pandemic-related strain on their math skills to fluency and get them prepared so that we close those gaps in middle school before they're struggling in high school with it.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that it was impossible to implement the new science curriculum over the past couple of years because of the distancing issues.
Not with fidelity.
Not with fidelity. That's what I meant. Not to implement with fidelity. Thank you for clarifying that. Do you think it's gotten better? And the reason why I'm asking is, I mean, I'm just, I'm harkening back to the day. I remember like visiting, when my child was in elementary school, going into the school, and kids are so excited about science, but something sometimes happens in the middle grades where they many students become less interested in science. It would be so great to have a curriculum that really keeps that excitement and engagement around science. And anyway, I'm just wondering, are you able to implement it with greater fidelity at this point, or do you hope to be able to soon?
Definitely this year obviously the first half of the 1920 school year, things were in full swing and the teachers had time and there was training included with the resource, so there was a good launch. And then with the shutdown, our teachers kept excitement going despite the inability for students to touch the materials and do the labs that are associated with the FOSS resource. And then, this year over last year is a huge difference because there's not the protocols around materials. Like at the beginning of last year, students were not able to share materials without them being like sanitized in between. And now we know that just the spread of COVID is less likely to be through those fomites or germs on the materials. So students are able to have hands-on. And you see them, they are really excited. They're, almost every lesson in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade is hands-on, and it makes a huge difference for students at this age accepting science and accepting themselves as scientists when they're in science class. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sean, have any questions over there? Is he good?
He's good.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Dr.
Appreciate
Sophie.
it.
Okay, so we're going to go into our public comment section, which I spoke extensively about earlier. Is there any public comment? Okie dokie. Going into the information report, so I'll turn it over to our student advisor, Mr. Perella.
Thank you. First thing I have here, the Haldane Ski Club is having their first trip of the year this Sunday. So like high interest from grades 6 to 12. And then we also have 2 more that are going to be planned throughout the year. So in case you weren't able to make it on this one, there's 2 more there. And they're all going to be just day trips. Additionally, we saw a survey being sent out for the junior and senior class trip to DC to gauge interest for that, and accounted for the possibility of 50% capacity or 100% capacity, just depending on what the situation is going to be like in March when that's planned. And finally, the Poetry Out Loud was held on last Tuesday, January 11th, where students were able to choose a poem, memorize, and recite it. And then we actually had 2 students, Percy Parker and Sam Bates, who are moving on to the regional competition. So that's happening in the future.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much. Ms. Jammin.
So the big item I wanted to highlight as we go into the next couple weeks is that we're getting ready for kindergartners again. So kindergarten registration is happening February 7th through 11th. Prior to that, our families are able to use Family ID, which our families in the secondary school may be familiar with from signing up for sports and for field trips and such. So giving our families the ability to upload forms electronically and then be able to complete the registration process partially remotely before they call or meet with Ms. Hilka and finalize that registration process. Should hopefully expedite the process for our families, make it easier for them to ensure that they have all of their forms in order and get their kindergartner registered. So our information night for parents is currently scheduled for January 27th at 7 o'clock. We're really hoping to have it in person. Usually it would be an event that would be held in the kindergarten classroom to give our families a visual of what kindergarten classrooms look like, but attendance is often higher than our rooms would allow. So the current plan is for it to be held in the auditorium to allow for distancing between our families, but still have an in-person chance for our families to ask questions and hear from our kindergarten teachers and myself. However, with the way things are right now, we do have the backup plan of shifting to Zoom if things are still at the high rate that they are in the community. So as soon as we make that decision, it'll get posted on the website and sent out to families. But kindergartners are still going to come next year, and we are excited to welcome them into the building in something that happens in a normal fashion. I want to thank our teachers and our families for their work as we came back from break. The numbers were much higher in the community, but thanks to parents who were diligent with keeping children who were exposed home and being honest about those exposures and about any symptoms that their children were having, we have had very few cases of positive students or staff being on campus. So we've had high numbers, but a large majority of those numbers have been home when they tested positive and therefore not continued to expose others to any spread. So I want to thank our families for that diligence, and then our teachers for working to get those students right onto remote as quickly as possible. It can take up to 24 hours, as if I find out in the morning our teachers are already in the process of teaching and getting things going, or if I find out late at night. So it can take up to 24 hours, but they've been working really hard to get kids onto remote or get them asynchronous materials to start to keep them engaged with their class and then onto remote classrooms. So as smooth as possible given the circumstances and everybody doing their very best. Any questions?
No.
All right.
Thank you so much. Dr. Seelke, come back. Talk to us some more.
Thank you for the warm welcome to the mic a second time, and I'll keep my comments brief, but I really would like to highlight how much fun the middle level is having with the PTA and the PTA subcommittees this year. So apart from the community read that I reported to the board, our VP, Jeff Silverstein, is part of the planning committee and working toward having a community read in the spring. In addition to that, we're also working with Teresa Lagerman in the 6th grade. On Friday, we'll have our first Learning Differences project planning session, myself and Mr. Sniffen and Ms. Lagerman, to see what's possible for this year. If you remember last year, we brought Crip Camp, the documentary, to the 6th grade, and full virtual visit from the film director, James LeBruck, as well. So I'm really excited to see what we're able to do this year. The middle level has also been working with Robin Marino and the EDI subcommittee of the PTA. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, check out the board that is right up this staircase. The EDI committee has been working with Christine Jamin to supply materials to decorate that board for month to honor the monthly campaigns. Native American Awareness Month is up there right now, and I'm working with Robin Marino to bring an increased awareness to Lunar New Year. This year is the Year of the Tiger, and we're really excited to bring that awareness to our middle school students as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sniffen.
Happy New Year. To tag along to what Christine had said, we started at the high school after the break with approximately 45 students in virtual environment. Tomorrow we will have 8. So I really do think that I'm hoping that we're seeing that trend within New York State. We're also seeing the trend at Haldane High School, and our numbers decreasing. I think there's a couple of variables that have played into that, but one of them, I think we're 8 is a nice number. I'm excited to get 0. With that, I know we spoke a little bit about poetry out loud, but our advisors to the literary magazine, Ms. Martinez and Ms. Pierce, were also able to send 3 students to the Boces Master's Writing Workshop on December 7th. Sam Bates, Chase Colson, and Percy Parker were able to attend, bring their work, and have additional professional writers give them some feedback and help them in editing their work. In addition to that, there was an Irish science fiction writer, David Rudin, who gave a keynote to all involved. The advisors are looking forward to, in the spring, when the Young Authors Conference will take place at Boces in May, and opening that up to all students within the Literary Magazine Club. In addition to that, in social studies, if you noticed on my report, we have another feature on PBS. Eloise Pearsall, who did a piece on issues facing students today, and she will be featured on January 27th. And we will be sure at the high school to post that link on the website to share Eloise's documentary work on issues facing students today. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Ms. Rounds.
Good evening. So thinking about Christine's report and thinking about kindergartners returning, as you all know, kindergartners with IEPs, students who are receiving CPSE services, will also be transitioning to kindergarten. So this is the time that we start thinking about answering those parents' questions, having them in to talk to them a little bit more about the transition. And with that, we've been working closely with Teresa Lagerman, again, from the Learning Differences Committee, to develop a frequently asked questions document for all grade levels and for transitions. So focusing on transitions. So Teresa's been working hard, talking to parents, collecting those frequently asked questions, and I've been gathering questions from teachers to add to that document. We're collecting those questions and answering the questions, and we hope to be posting an FAQ document on the website as soon as that's complete. And as I was writing this and thinking about this, I thought, I'm saying, the PPS department and the CPSE and the CSE, and I think I'm going to add to that document a frequently used acronyms list for parents to look at as well. I think it would be very helpful. There's so many of them now. In addition to this, we continue to work on developing a very robust MTSS RTI structure. We've been working on this ongoing, and our teachers are really giving a lot of thought to pre-referral interventions, and our special ed department at the elementary level this month met and really brainstormed and discussed interventions that can be put in place before a student gets to the student support team, so that when that referral is made and that teacher is looking for support for a student, they will have already been able to implement strategies through, Dawn Rosano, one of our school psychologists, has offered to go into the classrooms, give consultation, give strategies. We have the behaviorists doing the same thing, and many of our other related service providers. And we have some teachers who have great resources. Our literacy specialists shared a whole list of interventions and a whole list of short screenings that can be done prior to coming to the student support team. So often we're able to give those tier 1 and tier 2 supports right in the classroom, and often we find success with them and we see students making progress, so we continue to build on that and make it a robust program. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Elder.
Good evening, everybody. During the past 2 months, myself and the technology integration specialist, Ms. Leah Horn, have been attending a series of workshops that are designed to support the submission of our district's instructional technology plan for the 2022-2025 school years. New York State Education Department of the Office of Education Design and Technology collects and reviews key information on districts' instructional technology plans every 3 years. And the current plan that we have on file ends on June 30th, 2022. And as we have learned in the past couple of years, much has changed in the area of instructional technology since the last plans were drafted in 2018. And we look forward to this as an opportunity to develop a technology plan that's aligned to our district's strategic coherence plan and also reflects the tremendous growth that many districts have seen in the area of instructional technology in the last couple of years due to the pandemic. So we look forward to presenting that plan to you later on in the spring when it's completed. And during my last Board of Education in the area of human resources Board of Ed meeting, I shared with you that I would be representing the Haldane Central School District at the Teacher Diversity Job Fair event on Saturday, February 22nd. Since then, actually, from an email that was forwarded by Ms. Sniffen, the Haldane Central School District will be participating in the SUNY New Paltz Job Fair, which is held on March 16th, and that one will be in person. And each of these, Haldane's participation in each of these events provides an opportunity to expose our learning community to a bunch of prospective employers and allows us to kind of continue to spread the work that's going on in Haldane and express our value and missions to people, as well as kind of keep a nice fresh group of potential candidates should any job vacancies open. And part of a healthy human resources development process is always having a system of interviewing key people or individuals who might be interested in working in our district. So as vacancies arise, we're not necessarily starting from scratch every time, but might have a welcome batch of individuals to start calling from when that happens. Thank you.
I actually just have a quick question. Sorry to pull you back. Just from my understanding, am I correct in saying that the instructional technology plan is based on how we use technology to deliver instruction rather than instruction on technology?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, it's multi-phased. The actual instructional technology plan has multiple facets to it, and they keep adding on to it in 3-year cycles, which is one of the reasons why myself and Ms. Horn have been attending a series of workshops to kind of get us kind of up to speed as to what some of the new areas are. But generally speaking, yes, the idea is the ways in which the district is planning or setting goals for using instructional technology for the advancement of educational learning for its students within a district.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you. Mr. Cowan?
Good evening. I'd like to just share a midwinter season report with you folks this evening. It has been a challenging winter season for our student athletes and coaches due to COVID and weather causing numerous schedule changes to practice and games. However, this has not stopped our student athletes from working hard, improving their skills, demonstrating positive attitudes, and most important, having fun. Our boys and girls modified basketball teams have shown incredible improvement since the start of the season and will play the bulk of their schedule beginning this week through February 3rd. Our girls' JV basketball team is a young group of athletes, 5 7th and 8th graders and 4 9th graders who have improved tremendously since the start of their season. They often play against teams of 9th and 10th grade girls and have risen to the occasion with multiple wins and hard-fought games. Our boys' JV team has started the season winning 6 of their first 8 games and doing so in dominant fashion. They have been fun to watch, and the thought of when they move to varsity is very exciting. The girls' varsity basketball team continues to improve and has taken steps towards reaching their full potential. This was highlighted when, after losing to Croton Harmon in December by 11 points, our girls responded by beating Croton Harmon at home last week by 24 points. I have complete confidence in our girls and believe they will continue growing as individuals and as a team, and I am very excited to see what the postseason holds for them. Our boys' varsity basketball team is off to their best start in years, winning 8 of their first 9 games. The highlights for the first half of the season have been wins over Alexander Hamilton and Chester, opponents we could face again in sectional and regional championship games. Our winter track team has competed in 4 events to this point in the season, highlighted by their performance at the Dendy Invite at Rockland Community College on January 6th, Luke Perella placed third in the 600 meter. Eloise Pearsall placed second in the 600 meter. And Andrea Vasconcelos placed fourth in the triple jump. I'm always amazed at our winter track athletes' toughness and commitment as I watch them run in the cold daily. When I set up their bus trips, they also take long trips. So hats off to our winter track athletes. I'm proud of all of our winter athletes and coaches' efforts thus far, and confident that their efforts will continue for the remainder of the season. And I'd just like to take a moment to just say thank you to our Haldane community for being supportive and demonstrating patience with our spectator policy in the gym. We've really done a nice job keeping our teams and our fans safe, so I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just had a quick question for Dan.
Dan?
Dan, come back.
Just exactly what you said. Has there been a change to the spectator policy indoors, or is it still the same with the?
Currently, we have each of our athletes at the JV and varsity levels have 4 game passes that they can give to family or friends. Our coaches also have 4 game passes, so it's a bit more restrictive than what it was prior to winter recess. And we'll continue to evaluate the numbers that we have within our community, and hopefully within in the coming weeks we can take a look at taking some of the restrictions off.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Mr. Walsh, come on down.
Good evening. The Facilities Department has had a very busy few weeks. We were able to accomplish a lot of work, both contracted and in-house facility staff. We had Belfour Restoration on site to conduct a ductwork cleaning throughout the elementary school building. They used HEPA vacuums to clean the rooftop unit, supply and return ductwork, as well as diffusers and vents throughout the elementary school wing. This is related just to preventative maintenance work and not necessarily pandemic-related work. Young equipment sales was on site to replace the wall padding throughout the gymatorium. We're still waiting the padding that goes up above the stage. We hope to have that over the next few days even. And we had TBS controls on site to replace some heat valves and heat valve actuators to the heating system within the main building. As for the contract or facility staff, we're able to complete significant amount of work as well over the past few weeks. We painted interior offices in the district office, conduct enhanced cleanings of stairwells, interior spaces, clean carpeted spaces, and burnished floors. We've also had a few snow-related events over the past few days, and we look to have a few more over the next few days as well. Joe Lombardo Plumbing and Heating of Rockland, they are the vendor, the contractor that was awarded the phase 2 of our capital construction plan, the electrical mechanical upgrades. They have also started physical work on campus. Over the break, they were able to remove some non-operational equipment, both in our near the cafeteria and in our boiler room, in anticipation of having those replaced. We're continue to work with Joe Lombardo with their schedule when equipment's supposed to arrive, as well as a school calendar, to have that work, continue out throughout the school year. That's all I have, unless there's any questions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
So much going on. Thank you, everybody. We're going into consent agenda minutes. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
These are our minutes from the January 4th meeting. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, our committee minutes are here. The Technology Committee minutes from December 13th for review. Going into consent agenda financial. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I just had a question about what services we were talking about from Wappinger.
So, Ann, would you mind just speaking to your, with respect to item J1, right, Maggie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Would you mind just speaking to how we establish health and welfare services, and in particular with this one with Wappingers, which services are being rendered or
Sure.
have been rendered?
The Haldane gets a billed health and welfare services from school districts where they might have a private or parochial school within their boundaries, and our students attend those private or parochial schools, but the public school district supplies perhaps a school nurse to that school, so we're billed for those services based on how many of our students attend. You'll see more over the rest of the year maybe from Arlington or Dobbs Ferry or Somers, because our students attend those private schools or parochial schools within those boundaries.
Thank you.
Okay.
And we do something similar for Manitou, correct, Anne, for certain services?
We did, over the last couple of years, we have not billed because we haven't, because of the situation, we haven't had to place anyone there. There are other services that we provide to students that attend Manitou that we would bill for because they're within our boundaries. Okay.
And Anne, before you go, Maggie, I think since we had 3 items under this, did you also have a question related to, since Anne's here first, surplus textbook or surplus books?
I did. I was just wondering, it's a lot of books, right? I was just wondering if this is something that happens annually or if it happens, more once
It
in a while.
happens every year. We do have surplus and obsolete items that get surplus that the board would have to approve once a year. I think that there was a list that didn't make it to the board last time we had surplus items, so this might be an extra long list. But there might be some damaged books that the librarians find in the library, some that just no one uses anymore if they're out of date. So we do replace the ones that are damaged that we want to use, but in order to get rid of them, the principal will look at the list that the librarian suggests that we surplus, and some of the books are offered to teachers for their classroom library. Otherwise, we try to get value for them. There are certain companies that if we give the numbers of the books, they'll buy them from us. If no one wants them, we try to find someone who might take the donation. It is harder and harder to get rid of old books now because there's so many digital that people are interested in. But that's what those lists are for.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
And then lastly, I know there were some questions regarding the sports merger, so if I can ask Mr. Cowan just to come forward and address those.
I've just had a few Phillipstown Little League families, mostly middle school parents, who had questions about the modified team and if there's going to be a modified team. And I know you and I have talked about the modified team, but I was just curious. I just had a couple questions about the softball, the varsity. What is this a temporary agreement with the contract with Putnam Valley High, allowing the girls to play varsity?
Yes. So David Kantrowitz, the athletic director of Putnam Valley, and I had a discussion around varsity softball. We had at least one junior who plays softball outside of school and had an interest in playing at the varsity level. We are not offering a varsity team this year because of low numbers. Putnam Valley's numbers were low as well, and so David and I agreed to a short-term merger, which would allow our juniors and senior players from Haldane interested in softball an opportunity to play at the varsity level this year in Putnam Valley. And the second year to that would be next year when we intend on having a varsity team. Should Putnam Valley not have enough players, that we would take them on in the second year, and then that would be the end of the merger. And
so next year they'll be here, the practices, and it'll be sort of handled by Haldane, as opposed to this year where they're done in Putnam Valley.
Correct, yes. Assuming they don't have enough numbers to field their own team, then we would return the favor next year and allow their players to come and join our team.
Will this impact the JV team?
No, it will not. This year we anticipate our junior varsity softball team will be, there should be probably half the team that's in 9th grade. We do have a couple of 10th grade girls interested in softball, and then we could potentially have highly skilled 7th or 8th grade students, assuming they're physically mature enough, participate in the athletic placement process, and through that process could be eligible to play at the JV level as well.
And then they'll still be the modified?
And we will still have the merger for modified with Garrison as the host school.
And my last question is just with transportation. I know that practices this year will take place at Putnam Valley High for the varsity team. Does Haldane provide transportation for practices or
No, so traditionally Haldane does not provide transportation for sports mergers. So the student and her parents are aware of this as well, that if she commits to playing at Putnam Valley, that they will be responsible for providing transportation to practices and games.
Great. That's it. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Any further discussion or questions? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All righty, going into consent agenda personnel. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I just wanted to say that I will miss Jane Shanahan. She's a neighbor, and I worked with her. I worked with her for working on the yearbook. She's just always really positive and wonderful to reach on the other line of the phone. So I'll miss her.
Wonderful person. We're
We've
gonna
got
miss
her
too,
till
but we have
24.
2 more years. 2 more years, so.
2 years.
Yeah.
We got 2 years for her.
Yeah, we got 2 more years.
That's what she told me, at least. It says that, right? I'm just kidding.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, unfinished business. So Nisba Area 10 Director election. I'm going to open this up for a discussion so we can determine who we're voting for, and then I will turn it over to Catherine to read the resolution with the person we are voting in, and that's when we were actually vote. So Nisba Area 10 Director election. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
So any discussion? So we have 3 candidates, Frank Harriton, Cheryl Brady, and Debbie Gotti. We thank all 3 of them for throwing their hats in the ring. They all are highly qualified. I happen to know Frank Harriton through my work at Westchester Putnam and Nisba, so I was advocating for him with you guys at our last meeting. But is there any feeling about that? Would anybody like to advocate for another candidate?
I think Jen's, I spoke, again, just to reiterate what Jen said, like really thanking everybody for being willing to take on this important role. Everyone who's running has just done so much for public education. But, if Jen knows Mr. Harriton and thinks really highly of him, and she does, that sways my vote. You can read a lot on paper, but it's not the same as actually getting to see folks in action. And so, yeah, that's my thinking.
Is everybody okay with that?
I agree.
Yeah?
Sean
Yeah?
agrees.
Okay. So I should turn it over to Ms. Platt and then open that up, right? Okay, so go ahead.
Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby casts their vote to Frank Harriton to fill the unexpired term of Peggy Zugby on the New York State School Boards Association Nisba Board of Directors, representing Area 10 for 2021-2022, and authorizes the District Clerk to execute any documents consistent with this motion.
Okay, may I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Thank you to Frank. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Frank has Haldane's vote. Going into unfinished business, our policy review. So, Ms. Platt, I'll have you read the.
Be it resolved that, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education hereby adopts the following Haldane Central School District policies as attached: 1510, regular board meetings and rules; 5640, smoking, tobacco, and cannabis; and 7110, comprehensive student attendance.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion about these policies?
Jen, if I could just make a brief comment that I wanted to note that John had some feedback on policy 5640, which were minor in nature, but I think good feedback. So we did go ahead and I made some changes to policy 5640, which I'm seeing in my copy is highlighted in blue, just with respect to being inclusive of cannabis and vaping advertisements or promotional items being prohibited on campus. So just from a process perspective, I think you and I had a good discussion around that. And then it would be good for follow-up with me, you, and Peggy, just if there are this feedback in between first reading and second reading, how we want to process that with the board.
Yeah.
John's feedback was relatively straightforward. It's an easy fix, but I can it's a good reminder that I could envision there may be a policy in the future where the feedback is much more substantive and may delay our anticipated process of moving towards a second reading and adoption. So I just wanted to make that note.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, then all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Great, thank you. Policy review, second reading. This is not here for adoption at this time. This is here as a second reading of the age of entrance. The public will remember that the board brought forth the possibility of changing its policy that is currently a student needs to be 5 by December 31st, to changing it to the student needs to be 5 by December 1st. That is as much of a change as we are legally allowed to make with New York State, and it puts us in line with other districts in our area and throughout the state. And Dr. Benante sent a letter out to the community last week, I think it was last week or the week before, sharing the board's interest in looking at this policy and perhaps making some changes or shifts. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share?
Just wanted to add that we also have provided the policy to our local pre-K providers, which was something that the policy committee had discussed some time ago when we initially reviewed the policy. And we're keeping it on as a second reading as opposed to adoption because we still feel we just put it out there and drew the public's attention to it. We'd like to leave this potential comment period open for 2 more weeks to see what other thoughts community members may have to share with us for consideration before moving to either further changes or putting it on the next agenda for adoption by the board.
And I think it's important to note that, and Dr. Benante, I believe you wrote this in your email, but if there were parents, because the board is potentially adopting this for this coming year, for 2022-23. So if there were parents who were expecting to be able to let their December 30th baby go to kindergarten, now all of a sudden the policy changes, there will be consideration for that, that if somebody had plans to send their child to school and they were born between December 1st and December 31st, that we would work with those parents, work with those families.
That's correct.
Yeah. Peggy, did you want to?
Well, I mean, I can't remember what we said last time. You know, I'll be direct. If I had my druthers, I would push for an even earlier cutoff date. I think the research is very convincing to me, and I've looked at it for a while, that there is an academic benefit for being a little bit older. It's been demonstrated pretty widely in quite a number of studies. And I think, you know, since we've had this date, standards have really changed, you know, quite a lot. We expect an enormous amount from kindergartners and first graders. That's just my personal opinion, right? So I think I want to make sure that folks understand that this policy change was approached in a thoughtful, informed way, while also recognizing the potential inconvenience it should show to some, to impose on some parents. So it wasn't something that we took lightly. Even disregarding, though, my personal informed thoughts about this, bringing it in line with neighboring districts, I think, makes a lot of sense. So it's not, this was not arbitrary. This was a thought out. This was something that we thought out and, discussed. So, yeah.
So I don't know if the board has any further comments they want to make at this time, they can. It'll be on our meeting again in 2 weeks. If the public has any further comments, I know we have received one email about it. If the public has any further comments or questions, they're welcome to contact us, Dr. Benante, Ms. Jamin, throwing you in the mix for more information. Okay, so we're moving on to the Campus Master Planning Committee. I'll turn it over to Ms. Platt.
Be it resolved that, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education hereby creates an ad hoc campus master planning committee whose purpose and representatives are outlined herein.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion about the committee charge? In line with what we have been discussing. Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, very good. Going into the CSE, CPSE recommendations, Ms. Platt.
Be it resolved that, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, the Board of Education hereby approves the recommendations of the Committees on Special Education and Preschool Special Education as presented.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Going into our second communication from the public section. This is for all school district matters. Would anybody like to make a comment? Okay. Board committee reports. Policy committee update. I will turn it to Peggy if you have anything, any
real
reports?
update. Well, our next meeting is in February. That's it.
That's it. Westchester, Putnam. I wanted to bring, oh, my thing isn't working. There is an event on Thursday night that I'm attending on our behalf, on all everybody's behalf, but I'm inviting you along with me. It's a symposium about the importance of school boards, and there was a quote that I was going to look up on my email, but my thing is not coming right now. And a superintendent said, you know, what is the most important thing? What makes a school work? What turns a school around? And the superintendent said, a good school board does. And so the symposium is about school board service and successful school board service. So I'll let you know what I learn, and I'll bring it back to you.
I guess the only thing I would add to that is necessary but not sufficient, right? There's this distinction, like I think a good school board, right, is like a foundational thing, but that it's also like all the other things on top that happen in the class, that happen in the classroom.
A piece of the puzzle.
A piece of the puzzle.
An important piece of the puzzle. And I sent around to you guys that Nisba's annual lobbying conference is now virtual, so if that inspires anybody to attend and to advocate for better school funding and less unfunded mandates, you can do that through Westchester Putnam, and I can help you do that if anyone would like to do that. And that's it. Going into board reflections, does anybody have anything they'd like to share?
Nothing other than I wouldn't want Luke's third place to go unspecifically remarked upon, so congratulations to you.
Okay, Dr. Benante, do you have any final thoughts?
Just a few. I didn't provide COVID updates at the beginning of the board report because of our student recognition, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention just a few because they're impacting some of they undergird some of the reports that you heard here this evening. I think I commented 2 weeks ago that I felt we were entering one of the more confusing times in the management of the pandemic, just because of the number of messages that were coming out from respected bodies who influence our school policies and some of the lack of clarity around some of that messaging, and I'm afraid that may have landed on some of our families as we've articulated some of school policies. So I just want to reiterate, I know the board knows this, but that our test to stay program, so if you're in quarantine, your ability to continue to attend school is only for students who have been identified as school-based contacts, meaning you came into contact with somebody inside of school who's COVID positive. And the rationale for that is because we know now based on what we've observed over the last 2 years, is that COVID really hasn't demonstrated to spread inside a school setting because of all the procedures that our school takes to keep kids safe. I think so many of our families, just by observation this weekend of my email inbox and talking to some of our principals, have read about test to stay and the headlines, and there is some nuance to it. So many feel like, well, my child's quarantining, perhaps because of a contact outside of school, they should be eligible to come into school for test to stay, and that's not how test to stay is set up. It's not how it works, and I think there's some confusion regarding that. That being said, I'm encouraged, as Ms. Sniffen cited, that our numbers do appear to be getting lower. My hope is the peak of this was last week, and that our local numbers continue to go down, and that we won't have many students quarantining really for any situation. We'll begin to welcome more fans back to our interscholastic sports game events, and we'll again not be so worried about whether or not we have the staffing on any given day to keep our school opens. I think we've weathered the bulk of this. Last week was being the most difficult week, and we'll begin hopefully to move on from it. We're not there yet, but I think we're heading there in these next couple of weeks. Lastly, I just wanted to express my appreciation for the board's time this evening. I know we have an opportunity, a couple of opportunities throughout the year to spend time together in extended session for purpose of retreat. The board has always taken this time very seriously. I think good things really do, and I hope you see that as well, really do come from these discussions where we need a little bit more space to talk about policies or other matters of retreat, and that you see how that helps the administration in setting a purposeful direction in the months ahead. So it's not easy in the middle of January to meet at a 4:30 in the afternoon prior to a board meeting. I know that for all of you, but it is time really well spent, and it does have a significant influence on the leadership of the district in the days and the weeks and months that follow. So thank you for that.
Very good, thank you. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. May I have a second, please?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? I dare you.
My phone.